Hello and welcome to another episode of the EnvirotechOnline podcast. As always, I'm Jed Thomas, editor of EnvirotechOnline, here to bring you the latest in environmental monitoring, regulation and innovation.
Hi, and I'm Alan Booth, senior editor at ILM Media. Great to be back, Jed, though I'm guessing today's topic isn't going to lift anyone's spirits.
No, it's a grim one. We're looking at the data that's just come out about sewage discharges, and it's not good news. On March 27th of this year, the Environment Agency released its latest data on sewage discharges, and the headline is that in 2024, raw sewage was discharged into England's rivers and seas for a record-breaking 3.61 million hours.
Yikes. So let me do the maths. That's what, over 400 years of sewage?
Yeah, top marks, that's exactly right. But there is a bit of nuance to add to these figures. The number of individual spill events, supposedly, has actually dipped compared to 2023, but that means that the average duration of each spill has risen quite sharply. So the overall pollution exposure has increased to some extent, but the spill events have decreased.
Okay, but what's new here? We've been hearing about sewage spills for many years now.
Exactly, but there's a particular importance to this new round of data because it is the first time that we've monitored 100% of England's combined sewer overflows, that's CSOs, that's where sewage is discharged into rivers. This is the first time they were all monitored in real time. That's over 15,000 locations equipped with event duration monitors. Now, importantly, it has to be said that means that the data that this is a record-breaking year is slightly suspect, only that previous years there could have been just as much pollution, but it was only the first time that we've monitored every single sewage discharge. So it has to be taken with a grain of salt in the sense that it's not as if the problem is necessarily getting worse, only that we're finally understanding the full extent of the problem.
Right. So for the first time, we're not just estimating the scale of the problem, we're seeing it in full res.
Exactly, yeah. The EDMs, the event duration monitors, are sensor-based instruments that record the start and end time of each discharge, which means they don't tell us what's in the sewage or even the volume, but they do give us precise timing. That enables detailed tracking of spill frequency and duration, which are still two critical metrics for regulators and campaigners alike.
And how are these monitors set up? Are they all out in the field now?
Yeah, so they're typically installed either in overflow chambers or outfall pipes. They run all year, transmitting data to both the water companies and to regulators. And now that 100% of CSOs are covered, we have for the first time a complete system-wide record of sewage discharges across England.
So would you say that this record-breaking number is a sign that the problem got worse in 2024?
Yeah, that is the key point. Like I said, it's not necessarily that things got worse. It's that we're finally seeing the extent of what's been going on for years. The previous lack of monitoring left large parts of the system invisible. Now, in effect, we've just switched on the lights.
And I imagine this data will play a big role in holding the water companies accountable.
Yes, in a way it already is. If we take the River Ver in Hertfordshire near us, which is a globally rare chalk stream, last year it was hit with over 3,300 hours of sewage discharge, and that number simply wouldn't have existed. It wouldn't have been able to be put to the water companies in the area without this comprehensive EDM coverage.
And so now we see when and where discharges happen, but what about what's actually in the sewage? Sticky subject.
That's the catch, yeah. EDMs give us duration and timing, but they don't measure volume or pollutant composition. So we still don't know how many litres is discharged per eventer or what harmful substances are being released.
And that seems like a pretty big gap.
It is. Without volume data, we can't differentiate between a brief spill from a massive pipe and a long spill from a tiny one, i.e. we can compare two event durations and say, both of these events were an hour in duration, but we don't necessarily know whether for this pipe it was a trickle and the other pipe it was a massive influx. And without composition data, we're flying blind on the actual health and ecological risks posed by these sewer discharges. They can contain pathogens like E. coli, nutrient overloads, pharmaceutical residues, microplastics, heavy metals. But unless someone is manually sampling, which they'll be doing in the rivers, we're not picking it up. So there is a disconnect between, we'll know how long a discharge was for, and then we can look at the river and know its particular state, how many pollutants are in there. But we can't necessarily match the two things up. We don't know specifically how much of a particular pollutant is coming from what particular discharge event.
So that seems a bit of a shame with all this new infrastructure, that it's giving us lots of new data, but we're still only seeing part of the picture.
Right, exactly. We've mapped, we know the timings now, but we don't know necessarily the impact of all of those discharges. For things like chalk streams or bathing waters, more high priority river environments, they're more high priority. We need to conserve them and protect them a little bit more. They have particular vulnerabilities, the particular pollutants that are dangerous to swimmers or dangerous to wildlife in chalk streams. We do really need to know when those pollutants are being released into those particular systems by particular discharges. Otherwise, it makes the process of environmental protection and remediation a lot harder.
Are there technologies on the horizon to help fill in those gaps?
There are a few promising options. Things like automatic samplers that kick in during a spill event and can collect water for lab analysis, or you've got real-time chemical sensors that could detect things like ammonia or pharmaceutical markers, and even things like machine learning models that you train to estimate pollutant loads based on rainfall, land use, and historical chemistry can give us a more detailed, high-resolution picture of what's going on, how much sewage discharge is being released into the water, and what is actually in that sewage discharge.
So that's a bit of hope, but we're not there yet.
Yeah, 2024's data gives us a foundation. We now know that there is a significant scale of sewage discharges in this country, but to fully understand, regulate, and ultimately fix the problem, we need to pair that data with data on volume, composition, and ecological effect.
So can you give me what you think is the key takeaway for monitoring professionals?
Yeah, I'd say there are probably three takeaways, actually. The first one is that it's a real achievement. Now we know that real-time monitoring infrastructure can work even on a huge, massive scale. We have good data now on event duration of sewage discharges. The second thing is that there's still a huge opportunity in monitoring the things that EDMs don't cover, or even amending EDMs so that they cover more aspects of the pollution. And lastly, it's clear that for the industry at least, the direction of travel is for more insight, not less, which is a good sign for monitoring professionals because their services will continue to be needed, even more needed over the coming years.
All right, so it might be a grim milestone at the moment, but it could actually turn out to be a real turning point for the sector.
Yeah, let's hope so. And we'll be keeping our eye on that as it develops over the coming years on this podcast and over at www.EnvirotechOnline. If you head over to that website, you can find webinars, interviews, resources to help you stay ahead of the curve on this topic. And it's completely free to become a member and get access to that exclusive expert-led content.
And of course, while you're here, if you're enjoying the podcast, don't forget to subscribe or follow on your favourite platform. More updates coming soon.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Cheers, Jade. Goodbye from me.